So I'm going to go now to our last presentation of the day. And Erin, are you with us?
Hi, Kathy. Yes, I'm here.
All right. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Erin Diehm. She's a strong advocate for native plants and bird safe glass. Today, Erin will be talking about bird glass collisions, and she'll show us how to install the feather-friendly window markers that will prevent them. So what could be worse than creating an inviting garden in which birds can nest and raise their chicks, only to have them die by crashing into your windows? Most people don't know that over 1 billion birds in North America die in bird glass collisions every year. Almost half of these collisions occur on low-rise buildings like single-family homes. Most of the time, we don't even know when a collision happens because maybe we're not at home or we're in the other room. Actually, someone that I know told me that when she was cleaning out her fern fern bed, she found a bunch of mummified bird corpses like down there that she didn't even know that had happened. Sadly, even if they can fly off, most birds that hit glass die. So Erin and I know how to have fun. Recently, we threw an anti-bird slash glass collision feather-friendly window marker installation party at my house, and we and our guests put these markers on my own windows. We had screens up, I have to say, but I wanted to try the feather-friendly markers, and I have to say, I love them. In the right photo, we're standing in my kitchen looking out toward the backyard. That's a ceanothus in flower off there on the left. And I love that I get more light than I did through my screen, and it's clear. Like if I'm looking at a bird, I can really tell that it's a Townsend's warbler. And on the left, we're looking at the markers from the outside, and they look different, both from the inside and outside, depending on how the light is. Feather Friendly is offering a 10% discount to people who purchase Feather Friendly window markers with the discount that they have offered through the tour. I sent the code out in the email that went out yesterday morning and the day before that has the evaluation and the Zoom links in it. Finally, if you would like to see Feather Friendly or other kind of effective bird safe markers, you can visit Erin's Berkeley Garden on this year's Bringing Back the Natives Garden Tour on Saturday, May the 3rd. Erin and her husband installed a variety of bird safe treatments on their home windows, and they also built a set of demonstration windows and they hung them on their porch. And you can go up there so you can see how the markers look from both the inside and the outside. And here on the left, you can see a custom screen that they made. On the lower left are the Acopian blinds, the kind of the rope that hangs down. On the right is a pattern that Erin traced and put on the window with a marker. And we're looking at that window from both the inside and out. And in the middle are the kind of markers that Erin will be showing you how to install today. So with that, Erin, let me turn it over to you.
Great. Okay, very good. Let me do one more thing here. Okay, I can't see anybody. I kind of hit it. So if Kathy, say something if I need somebody's not working out because I can't see your faces. Okay.
It looks good right in here to me. We'll let you know if it's not.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kathy, for the introduction and including me in this year's tour. It really is an honor. My talk today is making windows safe for birds, why it's important, and how to apply feather-friendly markers. So a little bit of background is that about 10 years ago, my husband and I started to convert our yard to native plants, and a main goal was to support insects. But with time, more and more birds appeared, and of course, that's because they were coming to eat the insects. In fact, let me hang on a second. The photos here were all taken of birds in our backyard. But then one day we heard kind of a sickening thunk, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard that thunk, but we realized a bird had flown into the big picture window in our kitchen that looks out onto the garden. So we rushed outside, and against all odds, we actually found the stunned bird on the ground. It was hiding in our little buckwheat patch, and it was a sweet little warbler. Maybe it was on its migration north, and to be honest, I was really heartbroken. We put it in a box and we took it to the wildlife rescue, but thankfully the bird survived and they did release it. You know, we were really relieved, but we kind of knew there was a problem. And then a week or two later, I couldn't believe it, another thunk on that very same window, and it was another songbird. We were just sick. So we were able to take it to the rescue center. I don't think that's often the case. And luckily, because it did receive care, it survived. But when we got home, we knew we had to do something, and we started looking for solutions. And soon after, we had applied a treatment to the offending window. And over time, we applied different kinds of treatments to every window on our home. And I have to tell you, truly, we love each of them. And one reason is we can now relax and we know that the birds are protected. So when we think about our native plant garden, we actually think that one of our goals is to support wildlife with the native plants and protect birds with the bird safe treatments. Here is the agenda for my talk today. First, I'll give an overview of the problem, then review some of the guidelines for solutions, and finally, I'll walk you through how we applied feather-friendly markers to one of our windows. But I do want to start with kind of some big picture information. And I want to go back 6 years to 2019, and a groundbreaking study was released. It documented that birds are in decline. And in fact, since the 1970s, there's been a net loss of almost 3 billion birds. And to put that into perspective, in the 70s, there were 10 billion breeding birds, and there are now about 7 billion. More recently, some of you may have seen this, but the annual state of the birds was released, and it found that most groups of birds continue to decline. Waterfowl, that's been a bright spot because we're doing a pretty good job of wetlands conservation, but for all the other birds, the trends are downward. So what we need to do is understand why and what we can do. Well, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has outlined 7 simple actions that we can take right now to help birds. We've heard many excellent talks about how to use native plants, it's marked here, and now we'll review how to make windows safer. We know there are many factors contributing to bird declines like habitat loss and climate change. So why would we talk about windows? Well, as Kathy mentioned, that's because bird glass collisions are responsible for up to 1 billion birds each year in the United States alone. And as new homes and businesses continue to be built, there will be more glass that threaten the birds. But there are things we can do now to help. And now is an especially good time because, as many of you are aware, spring migration has begun. And billions of birds who spent the winter in Central or South America are starting their long and incredible journey north, back to their breeding grounds, as far north as Canada and Alaska. And we are in the blue Pacific Flyway, or for those of you who are here on the West Coast. Now, remember that most birds migrate at night. A lot of people don't know that. And so during the daytime, they come down to rest and refuel. And if they've been disoriented at night by light pollution from cities, they may actually come down into our urban areas where they'll face many threats, including window glass. So what does this all mean? Well, in my view, now is the time to act. So this is showing our power and love for birds. Where do most collisions happen? Many think that skyscrapers are the biggest problem, but data show they contribute to less than 1% of the fatalities. Mid-rise buildings, that's 4 to 11 stories, account for about 56%. And while this does surprise a lot of people, and Kathy mentioned this, 44% of the collisions, that's almost half, actually happen at buildings that are only 1 to 3 floors high. So that's businesses and like our homes. So this begs the question, why do birds collide with glass? Well, there are several factors, but the 2 primary ones are reflection and transparency. With reflections, birds see the reflection of the trees, bushes, or sky. They think they're real and they fly towards the image, which you can see here in the photo on the left, but they crash into the glass instead. And the trees and bushes we're planting around our homes to create habitat are often at the same level as our windows, which could put birds in harm's way. Now, the second reason is transparency on the right. Birds may see through the glass. They wouldn't realize the glass is there and they fly into it. Or they may see vegetation or sky on the other side and try to fly to it. But instead of reaching the trees or plants, they strike the glass. Many people have told me, and this is the last picture of a dead bird, I promise, that they've seen or heard a bird strike on one of their windows and the bird flew away, so it must be fine. But unfortunately, that's not usually the case. More than half of the collisions leave no evidence at all. So there are many more happening than we realize. And what people don't see is what happens afterwards. If the birds can actually hit glass at speeds of 25 or 30 miles an hour, so pretty quick, pretty fast, and they suffer concussions and internal injuries. So if they fall to the ground and stunned, they're vulnerable to predators. And if it does fly off, it very likely will succumb to its injuries later. And if it's a parent, the young likely may not survive. But again, the good news is that these collisions are preventable. So now let's talk about the solutions. And one of the main actions we can take is to make our glass visible to birds. There are many ways to do that. New glass can include screens or incorporate patterns like etching or fritting. And that's the photo on the left. And these windows have been permanently etched with these vertical lines. The photos in the lower right, that's of existing homes, like existing glass, like in our homes. And this glass can be retrofitted with a wide variety of treatments, like screens, paints and pens, cording, tapes, dots, films, and that's just to name a few. Now, one note about ultraviolet or UV treatments is that not all birds see in the UV spectrum, so they won't protect birds like raptors and pigeons. Plus, the UV treatments tend to be more expensive, so I haven't included them among our options here. Here are the guidelines to ensure that visual markers are effective. First, the treatments must be applied to the outside or exterior surface of the window. The markers need to stand out and be no smaller than a 1/4 inch. The entire glass surface needs to be covered, and the vertical and horizontal markings should be separated by no more than 2 inches by 2 inches, which protects hummingbirds too. And this is often called the 2 by 2 rule. However, one of the treatments, the what's called acopian blinds or bird savers, they can have a wider 4-inch vertical spacing and still be effective. Here are some treatments that are common but not effective solutions. On the left are decals. These are very popular. A lot of times they get applied to the interior side, which can make them virtually ineffective most of the time. But even if they are applied to the exterior side, they're often not effective because they're spaced too far apart. They don't follow the 2 by 2 rule. And then on the right side, we see this illustrates an interior treatment, which is blinds or shades. So they've been closed, but they don't, this often doesn't work because the reflection actually prevents the bird from seeing them. So I don't know if you all can actually see this. Can you see that the blinds are closed? Now that we understand the problem and the solutions, I'll share with you how we applied feather-friendly markers to a window on our home. And I tell you, it was super easy, and I am sure that you all can do it too. So this is the back of our house. It faces west towards the native plant garden that attracts a lot of birds. When the sun sets, the reflections off the glass are really strong, which makes these windows especially dangerous. Now, the window on the lower right is the one I'll apply the feather-friendly markers to. As you can see here, the window is 26 inches wide and 42 inches tall, so it's about 8 square feet. It's not too big, which is really great, and it's also on the ground level. So this is a really good window to start with, not too large and easy to get to. Here's an unboxing of the markers that you can get from Feather Friendly. And these were generously donated by Feather Friendly. Thank you, Feather Friendly. The markers are intended for small-scale DIY projects like our homes. One roll costs $18.99 and it covers 16 square feet. So almost 2 of the windows that we're going to cover. The box contains instructions, this is on the right, 2 white paper measuring tapes, an orange squeegee, a green sticker, and then the roll of markers. And remember that our goal is to create a 2 by 2 inch matrix of markers. That's what you see in the lower left. So the first step is to clean the window. Pretty simple. Here are the supplies I used: a bucket and dish soap and rubbing alcohol, towels, and a few more things to wash the window. And then for the markers, we've got the box of feather-friendly markers, some blue painter's tape, and scissors. That's all you need. So the first step again is to clean the window. And I just used a garden hose to rinse the window first. And then I filled a bucket about a quarter full and added 5 to 6 drops of dish soap. And then wiped down the window with a sponge. It was dipped in the diluted soapy water that's in the upper right. And then this window actually had not been cleaned for almost 15 years, so it needed a little bit more work. And so I got a soft dish brush and did some gentle scrubbing there. After that, I rinsed it with the hose, and then I used a squeegee to remove the excess water. Now, the next step is to wipe down the glass with rubbing alcohol. And a 50-50 solution is recommended. You can see I'm measuring out here my 4-cup Pyrex. And they say a feather friendly says to avoid products that contain silicone like Windex. So I used a lint-free dishcloth to apply the alcohol solution, and I say it really did. It dried almost immediately, leaving the glass squeaky clean and ready. So in my opinion, this next step is actually the most important step and one where you should really take your time. And that is actually figuring out the side or the horizontal placement of the markers. And one of the reasons why this is so important is because first you want them centered in the window as best as you can get them, but also the roll of markers is actually stretchy. The tape can be stretchy. So take your time at this initial step. And we now have a favorite approach. We've tried it different ways, but this is now our favorite way. We use Post-it notes to figure out how wide the margins should be. And we start by cutting several Post-its in half, and that makes them 1.5 inches wide. And to begin, we put 2 across the top, and then 1 on the left side and 1 on the right side. And this is a photo of just the left side. Then you just take the tape here. It can be kind of tricky to get the end up, but you just unwind the roll of markers to the approximate width of the window. You can cut it if you like. And then this is the next step again. We're just trying to get the placement on the window. We're not sticking it to the window yet. So you're holding the tape away from the glass. The sticky side is towards the glass. And you align the left edge of the leftmost dot with the inner side of the yellow Post-it note. I think you can probably see that you've got that little white square and it's aligned with the yellow Post-it. And again, you're holding it away from the glass. Then you've got your tape stretched out. Again, with the sticky side, you're keeping the sticky side away from the glass. It's facing the glass, but it's held away from it. And you stretch the markers across. And you look to see how well do the edges of the markers align with the edges of the Post-it notes. And if you may actually need to adjust the width of the Post-it notes to make them narrower or wider. But to have them be the same width on both sides of the windows. I have to be honest, we got really lucky with this window that the 1.5 inch wide Post-it notes worked perfectly. And at the top and the bottom of the window, we actually keep the Post-its at 1.5 inch. But at this point, you've kind of determined how wide the side Post-it notes need to be, and then you cut, I don't know, like 4 or 6 more of them. And you apply those to the left and right sides, and then you also put your 1.5 Post-its on the top, 2 of them on the top and bottom. That was a lot of words. Okay, so the next step is placing the 2 paper measuring tapes, one on the left side and one on the right. And here's the first one on the left side. Now, keep in mind that the first row of feather-friendly dots should be within 2 inches of the top of the glass. So we decided to put the row a little closer at just 1.5 inches from the top. So as you can see here in the photo, we folded down the top of the measuring tape by 1/2 inch. So you can see that the 1/2 inch is at the very top there. So next is to affix the measuring tape to the window. We used painter's tape, and we used the edges of the Post-it notes as a guide. We aligned the outer edge of the white measuring tape with the edge of the Post-it note. I think you can see that in the left photograph. And then we just apply blue painter's tape directly to the glass or the window frame. And then we do the same thing on the right-hand side. We find that this is one of our little tips because we've tried this all different ways, but we find that taping the measuring tape, the white measuring tape, directly to the glass makes it easier to ensure this consistent alignment of the dots side to side, which then makes them line up vertically. So now that the two measuring tapes are in place, we apply the first row of markers to the glass. Align the top, now look in the lower left photograph. We align the top of the feather-friendly tape with a 2-inch mark on the measuring tape. And at the same time, the left edge of the marker with the inside edge of the measuring tape, which you've kind of done this before. And you press it down. Now it's affixed to, that dot's affixed to the window. And then you, again, stretch your tape out and you align the rightmost dot with the edge of the measuring tape, and you still are holding it away from the glass. You haven't affixed it to the window yet. So you're holding it out away from the glass, and then what you do is you take your hand and you just run it across the tape. We can go kind of slowly if you want. And if you're left-handed, you might go right to left. But this is the way that you actually do the initial application to the glass. And now the first row of markers has been applied. Hooray. And I tell you, it only gets easier from here. This is the most part the part where you should take the most time. Now remember, we're building a 2x2 matrix of dots. So for the second row, we align the top of the markers with the 4-inch mark. You can see it here in the photograph. You can see the first 2 rows, actually, the 2 and the 4-inch marks on the measuring tape. Again, you just do another repeat. You stretch the tape across, you hold the top of the tape with the 4-inch mark now, and then you align the right side of the right end marker with the edge of that Post-it note or the measuring tape. You hold it in place, you tap down the left dot, and then you just run your finger from left to right. And now the second row is attached. We've got 2 rows down, and you really can get into a groove at this point. For each row of markers, you align the outer edge of the marker with the measuring tape, and you separate the rows by 2 inches. So here you can see the top of the markers are at the 2, 4, 6, and 8-inch marks on the measuring tape. Now let's make the adhesive markers stick really well to the glass, and we use the provided squeegee for this. Ours here is orange. Then Feather Friendly supplied this, but if you lose it, don't worry, you can actually use a credit card or something similar. So you take the orange squeegee and you just press down, you move it from left to right or right to left over each row, and you repeat a couple of times. So now the tape is actually really nicely affixed to the glass, the dots are. And now it's time to remove the carrier tape. Now, if the temperature is close to 50 degrees, you want to wait 20 minutes before peeling. Otherwise, you should be able to do it soon after you do the squeegee. Take the end and pull down at a 45-degree angle. And pulling like this at that angle helps ensure that the dots stay on the window. But if one fails to stick and it comes off with the carrier tape, don't worry, it's easy. You can just cut a new one and apply it later. Here I am continuing to peel off the carrier tape, but I am demonstrating bad form. And I have to admit, a dot came off and I had to replace it. So do try, and my husband got the photograph of me doing the bad form. So do try to actually peel it at the 45-degree angle, and it's more likely all the dots will stay on. I applied several rows at a time, ran the orange squeegee across, and then removed several rows of the carrier tape. Here you can see we've got 7 rows applied. A few more getting done. We're getting close to the bottom. And now we are all done. So the dots turned out really well. They're centered and the markers are vertically aligned. That's one of the big pieces. I went slowly and methodically, and it took me about 2.5 hours from start to finish. Now the final step obviously is just to remove the Post-its and the measuring tape and anything else that's stuck to the window. But I have to say, we absolutely love our feather-friendly bird-safe markers. And you know what? I actually think the birds love them too. The birds are now protected and safe from window collisions. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and get your markers and put them on the window. Here are a few tips and tricks. You should install the markers within 2 months of purchase, because of the adhesive on the back will still perform the best. They do say that it should be at least 50 degrees or warmer before in order to install them. Now, obviously, ground floor windows are easier, and if you need to get on a ladder, that's going to be a little bit more challenging, and you would definitely want to do that in pairs. And you may want to start with windows where you've heard of funk, and then to treat 1 or 2 windows and then go from there. When you're actually applying the markers, don't rush, take your time, and really make time to set up the left and right guides. If a marker comes off, don't worry, just replace it with a new one. And then looking ahead, the markers, these feather-friendly markers are guaranteed for 8 years. If you need to clean the window, they suggest using mild liquid detergent and a soft cloth, nothing harsh like they have here. And then let's say you're a renter and you have to remove the markers, it's very easy. They have instructions on the feather-friendly webpage. You just use soapy water and a scraper, and I put a QR code here to that page. Now, for more information, here are pointers to a few YouTube videos that demonstrate applying these very same feather-friendly dots. And at the beginning of my talk, Kathy mentioned us having a party at her house, showed a few pictures. So here we are applying markers to her kitchen window. And I'll say this is a different kind of feather-friendly product and also donated. It's called Melody, and it comes in 6-inch sheets. And each sheet has 5 rows of dots. You can probably see that. Prior to installing, we watched the YouTube video recommended by Feather Friendly, and I got the QR code here. And honestly, it was super helpful. And in this photo, I'm separating the backing from the sticky carrier tape. And this is Janet. She's showing off her skills. She did a great job. Now, I've got circled here, Feather Friendly includes these special guides that make it really easy to line up each sheet of dots. It made it really easy and fast. And last thing is, you might notice it took just 3 rows of these sheets to cover the windows. So we saw this earlier. Here is Kathy's window, and the dots look great. And I want to call it again, the reflection of Kathy's gorgeous native plant garden is at the top of the window, and it can be very deceptive to birds. Without the markers, and Kathy had shared that she had had screens here before, so it was still safe in the past. But had she taken the screens off and just left the glass, without the markers, the birds might be tricked into thinking the images were real and fly into the glass. But now with the 2x2 matrix, the birds are protected. Now, there's actually some ordinances that cities are starting to enact, and businesses are also starting to realize the dangers of glass. So here are treatments from buildings in Microsoft and Google. Maybe they've got the horizontal lines at Microsoft or dots at Google. And recently, there was some really good news. Some of you may have heard about McCormick Place in Chicago on the banks of Lake Michigan. And it's been a serious threat to migratory birds for a long time. And last year, there was a really tragic event. A lot of birds, migrating birds, flew into the glass and died. But the good news is that the building owners took action, and they applied the feather-friendly markers to the windows and are now reporting that collisions are down 95%. So for this talk, I focused on feather-friendly products, but there are other brands and approaches. And here's a list of the kinds we've applied to the windows on our home. And to learn more, you can see photos of our treated windows. You can just see the video from my talk at last year's tour, and the QR code is here on the right, or you can find it on Kathy's Bringing Back the Natives webpage. Finally, we know cost is a consideration. So here's a table that shows how much treatments cost from the least expensive to the most, going from the top to bottom. And we include the cost per square foot, and also for a 3x4 window, the cost ranges from $5 to $83. And you can see that the single roll of feather-friendly markers are definitely economical. They're easy to use, just $18.99 a roll, and that translates to about $14 for a 3x4 window. So I've said this before, but just a reminder that every window in the home really is a threat, even if we haven't heard a thunk. But you may just want to start with a couple of them, the ones that you know to be a problem or suspect to be a problem. So with that, I am done. And I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I hope that you feel empowered to go out there and put some markers and dots on your windows to protect the birds. And please, if you can, feel free to stop by our home and see our demonstration windows and other treated windows on the tour on the first Saturday of May. That's
Right,
it.
Erin, thank you so much. That was terrific.
Thank
So
you.
there were some questions. Let's see. Well, one was, why did I remove the screens? Somebody asked. And with my husband, oh, can I share? I want to show a picture here.
Yep, you've got it.
Do I have it? Let's see. Which one is mine, Mike? This one or this one?
Yep.
This one. Okay. So, oh no. Gosh, where is it? All right, I don't have it. I thought I had a picture, maybe it was in yesterday's, but when we remodeled, my husband and I, we had heard three birds. We found three dead birds outside of our windows in the 6 months prior to remodeling, which was horrible. And we were going to be putting in more windows. And I was determined that we were not going to have more bird glass collisions because we had, done the remodeling job. So we specifically ordered double hung windows because you can put screens on the outside. Like in casement windows, you can't put screens on the outside because the window opens out. But for double hung, you can. So all the windows that we could, we ordered double hung like these in the kitchen. And we put screens on all of them. And then we have a big picture window in our living room that has been here forever. And for that, we got kaleidoscope screening. So when the scaffolding was up, because it's on the second floor, we just adhere it with water. You just apply it with water, and the screening stopped. It totally stopped our bird glass collisions. But when Feather Friendly donated these window markers, so I'm distributing them to hosts this year to put on a couple windows in their home so that as people go around and look at the gardens, they can also see these window markers. I wanted to try the feather-friendly markers on our own kitchen windows, and I have to say, I really love them. I love them because it lets more light in than a screen did. Like I was perfectly happy with our screens. Would rather have a screen up than to have birds colliding with the glass. But I really love that more light comes in through the feather-friendly markers, and also that because there's not a screen, like when I look outside, I can really tell, like, oh, I don't have to wonder, is that a Townsend's warbler? I can see it's a Townsend's warbler because I'm looking just through the glass and I can see it. So that's why we took our screens off. And I wanted to say that we found the um, the 6-inch strips to be really fast to apply. I mean, relatively speaking, don't you think, Erin?
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, they were quick. But the deal is that that melody pattern, which is what I have here on this window, it's called a mid DYI mid-size or something.
Yeah, mid-level pro.
Mid-level pro.
I think, yeah, we made the cut.
And it comes in a roll that's 220 feet, which may be more than you need. So you might want to see if you can split it with a neighbor. You could just unspool the whole roll and cut it in half and split it with somebody else. It's less expensive to buy it in bulk like that, and it was really fast to put on. Um, let's see. I'm can't see the chat right now. I don't know why. Oh, there it is. Um, so Erin, I was surprised that like in my window, the dots are offset. They make a triangle like this, but in yours, you lined up your dots
Yeah,
vertically. Why did you not offset them?
I think it might have been too difficult. You can do either pattern. And one thing I noticed with these, even with the feather-friendly ones that were the 6-inch wide sheets, sometimes they have them vertically and horizontally aligned, and then sometimes they're offset.
Mhm.
So I think that both patterns are will protect, and it's kind of a matter of aesthetics. I think when I did it on our back window, it's just easier to have everything aligned. I think if I
Yep.
had to kind of do half and half, I don't trust myself with the individual row of dots. I think it probably wouldn't have looked very good.
Yep. All right. So Amanda asked, have you ever tried using a stencil and painting the dots on the glass? And one could paint the dots on the glass. Erin painted that nice like plant stencil on the glass.
I'll show that real quick. And Amanda too. The answer is definitely yes. And I have even seen people who are starting to do. Okay, so this is the stencil I used. I got this is from last year, um, where they actually have a whole, this Burlington, Vermont actually had a whole program around it and they had step by step. But I've also seen people, you could just do the dots. I've seen people do spider webs where they've kind of come out from the corner and then like had decorations. So yeah, I think the limit is your imagination. But the key would be that you need the dots to be at least like a quarter inch across so that they're large enough for the birds to see, and then also that they're spaced closely enough.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go on to the tail end here. Let me see.